We begin with the latest from the Middle East right now. Israel launching what it calls a precise retaliatory strike against Iran. The IDF saying it was targeting military capabilities.
Right now, the Israel Defense Forces is conducting precise strikes on military targets in Iran.
It is said that bringing a knife to a gunfight is a death wish. But what happens when it is all you have against an enemy wielding a weapon capable of unimaginable destruction? Israel's latest fighter jet has just proven its unprecedented advantage and ability to dominate its enemies in ways no one thought possible. And this has left Iran and its allies scrambling for answers.
Moving on, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that Israel's last month attack on Iran degraded its defense and missile manufacturing capabilities.
Have a look at these buildings that we've circled down here. This is what they looked like before Saturday's strike. Afterwards, you can see the damage done. They're both gone.
A fighter jet that combines two of the most cutting-edge technologies in aviation and warfare. One that lays bare all enemy strategies without their knowledge, and another so advanced it is capable of pinpoint accuracy. What does this mean for the conflict between Israel and Iran, as well as the unending power tussle between enemy nations and their allies? How does Iran respond to this massive advantage its enemies have acquired, and what nations come into play as things develop? Could this start an arms race that tears everything apart? Today, we're exploring Israel's new fighter jet and how it may shape the history of modern warfare. The Israel-Iran conflict.
A new retaliatory threat from Iran less than a week after Israel's counterstrike against the regime. As the Ayatollah says, last Saturday's IDF strike, quote, too big to ignore.
On the 26th of October 2024, Israel shook Iran, its allies, and the whole world when it launched a devastating precision strike on Iran. The attack, codenamed Operation Days of Repentance, was a retaliation on Iran after the latter had fired ballistics missiles to avenge the assassination of some of their highly ranked officials. But this was not a war that started overnight. The Israel-Iran conflict we see today is a culmination of decades of animosity, proxy battles, and ideological clashes, rooted in both geopolitical interests and deeply entrenched narratives. For years, the two nations have been engaged in a shadow war, marked by covert operations, cyber attacks, and proxy warfare. The two nations had an ambivalent period from 1947 to 1953, but enjoyed friendly cooperation in the following years up until 1979. They traded together and assisted each other in wars against their enemies. However, the relationship turned sour after the Iranian Revolution of 1979 that installed Ayatollah Khamenei as the supreme leader. Both nations cut off ties and official relations, straining the relationship between them from 1979 to 1990. Iran supported different groups, especially the Hezbollah, in their fight against the Israelis, providing military training and ammunition and helping to form their ideological indoctrination. However, the tensions between the opposing nations reached a new height in the 1990s and 2000s as Iran expanded its influence across the Middle East through its support for militant groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas in Palestine. These groups, heavily funded and armed by Iran, became key instruments in its strategy to challenge Israeli dominance in the region. Hezbollah, in particular, emerged as a significant threat, engaging in cross-border conflicts with Israel and launching attacks that led to major wars, such as the 2006 Lebanon War. Iran's involvement in these proxy battles solidified its role as a primary adversary of Israel. At the same time, Israel responded by intensifying its efforts to curtail Iran's regional ambitions. Israeli intelligence agencies such as Mossad carried out covert operations targeting Iranian military assets, scientists, and weapons shipments. Cyber attacks, like the infamous Stuxnet operation that disrupted Iran's nuclear program in 2010, showcased Israel's determination to prevent Tehran from achieving nuclear capabilities. The 2010s further escalated the rivalry as Iran doubled down on its nuclear ambitions, claiming its program was for peaceful purposes, while Israel and its allies accused Tehran of seeking to develop nuclear weapons. The landmark 2015 Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA, a deal struck between Iran and world powers to limit its nuclear activities, provided a temporary lull. However, Israel vehemently opposed the agreement, warning that it did not go far enough to dismantle Iran's nuclear infrastructure. By 2018, the conflict reignited when the United States, under President Donald Trump, withdrew from the JCPOA, reinstating harsh sanctions on Iran. Tehran retaliated by resuming uranium enrichment and ramping up its regional activities, further fueling Israeli fears. This period saw an increase in Israeli airstrikes on Iranian targets in Syria, where Iran had established a significant military presence to support the Assad regime during the Syrian civil war. The proxy war between the two nations escalated into open confrontations as Iran's regional proxies, including Hezbollah and Shiite militias in Iraq, launched attacks against Israeli and allied targets. Israel, in turn, struck Iranian forces and facilities across the region, including daring operations deep inside Iran's territory. Covert assassinations of high-profile Iranian figures like Qasem Soleimani in 2020 and nuclear scientist Mohsen Fakhrizadeh further inflamed tensions. The events of 2024, including the assassination of Iranian officials and the subsequent ballistic missile attack on Israel, mark the culmination of years of hostilities. Operation Days of Repentance, Israel's most daring strike to date, not only demonstrated its superior military capabilities, but also signaled its willingness to escalate the conflict if provoked. What started as a shadow war has now evolved into a confrontation with global implications. The Israel-Iran conflict is no longer confined to the Middle East. It has become a battleground for regional and international powers, each with its own stakes in the outcome. Both nations are locked in an unyielding cycle of aggression and retaliation that has made the path to peace increasingly distant. But what is the latest regarding the conflict between both nations? Let's explore what the long-fought war has developed into over the years and how it is currently being fought. Current state of the conflict.
Let's return to the Middle East now, and satellite images analysed by BBC Verify showed damage to a number of military sites in Iran from Israeli strikes over the weekend.
The most recent attack between the two nations demonstrates just how hostile relations are between them. Both nations have strategically targeted the other side at various times, usually claiming they acted in retaliation to the last attack against them. Each attack is more fierce than the last, and it was no different when Israel laid enemy territories to waste days ago. The strategically planned attack unfolded during the early hours of the day to give the Iranians a lesser idea of what was about to hit them. But even if you knew they were coming, how do you stop a fleet of over 100 fighter planes, unmanned drones, and other combat aircraft charging at you at the same time? And it's not just their number, it's the sheer speed that gives no time to think, coupled with impeccable coordination that outsmarts your next move until you just lay there powerless and fed up, accepting what hits you in a sorry state.
still be tested for our ability to thwart the Iranian nuclear program. It's not a secret, it was published. There is a specific component in their nuclear program that was hidden.
Israeli officials have given us a glimpse of the attack. In anticipation of interceptions by Iran's defense systems, they instituted an attack on the sources of power for their defense: batteries and radars located in Iraq and Syria. With the defense out of the way, it was a free rein for the fighter ejects as they descended on Iran. The 1,000-mile difference between their locations may have given Iran the impression that they can get ready in time. But we're talking about jets moving at supersonic speed. They've already hit you before you know they exist. Before you know it, Iran's air defense systems were down. Israel still had Iran's long-range missiles to worry about, but not for long, as they were the next target. Straight to the production sites, the fighter jets charged, annihilating the critical component that powered the production process. Even at the end of the attack, Iran could not fathom what had hit them. What just happened? One of them would ask the other, but none of them knows. It took a while before reality sank in, and they started counting casualties. It's a massive wake-up call, demanding immediate reinforcement to avoid a repeat in the future. So, what do we know about this Israeli fighter jet that's quickly changing the narrative? What is it capable of? And how does it change what we already know about this unending conflict? Let's take a closer look at Israel's new fighter jet, the double-powered fighter jet.
And now, Israel's acquisition of additional F-35 fighter jets strengthens defense capabilities, enhances technological advantage, and ensures preparedness for future challenges.
An additional 25 aircrafts will be added to the Israeli Air Force F-35 fleet, bringing the total to 75 in the coming years.
At a time when air dominance remains the key to breaking down the toughest enemy defenses to secure crucial victories, nations are vying to possess the best fighter jets that can rule the skies for them against their adversaries. The United States is at the forefront with fighter jets like the YF-22 Raptor, while others like China and Russia are not far behind with various power jets of their own. However, a new powerhouse has just thrown itself into the conversation. Israel has unveiled a cutting-edge fighter jet whose capability is so terrifying that it has left Iran scrambling. This is a bold statement that Israel is not playing around when it comes to its security and technological superiority. They've invested in a massive advantage that places them firmly in control of regional wars. What is even more impressive is the two advanced technologies that have been combined into this aircraft. The first is a groundbreaking surveillance system that provides unparalleled intelligence-gathering capabilities. This system is capable of laying bare the strategies and movements of enemy forces without them even realizing it. With highly sophisticated sensors, AI-driven data processing, and stealth reconnaissance abilities, this technology ensures that no target is out of reach and no operation goes unnoticed. We are in an era where military prowess is dictated by how much intelligence a nation has. That's because intelligence allows a nation to figure out everything about their enemy, their strategies, their weaponry, plans, steps, etc. Consider the most recent Israeli bombing of military outfits in Iran. It was a success because Israel already had intelligence regarding the operations of Iran. They knew the locations of their most important systems and attacked them first. This was what crippled the Iran detection systems and made them unaware of the incoming danger. So, Israel had intelligence on the enemies and went ahead to destroy their intelligence before attacking other sites. That is modern warfare at its best. Israel's spy plane gives them a unique advantage as it can track enemy movements in real time, allowing them to intercept communications and stop missiles even before they're launched. It means Israel will be aware of all the tactics Iran wants to employ against them, with a complete knowledge of military installations, nuclear sites, the exact number of weapons, and so on.
Tomer Bar, the chief to the IAF. The deal, estimated at $3 billion, will be financed by the U.S. military.
Israel's newly developed spy fighter plane puts them in control of data, which is what any nation needs to win modern warfare. Not fast jets or other traditional military tactics. The nation in control of data has in its hands the enemy's secrets and vulnerabilities. Israel can decide to expose the information they gather on Iran to the rest of the world, rendering them completely powerless and unable to act without being seen.
A successful laser weapon can burn through strong materials remarkably fast with virtual silence. Pilots could use it to defend against enemy planes, threats from the ground.
The second technological marvel is a laser-based weapon system, one of the most advanced forms of air-to-air and air-to-ground combat capability ever seen. Unlike traditional missile systems, these laser guns deliver pinpoint accuracy at the speed of light, neutralizing threats before they can even reach striking distance. They can take down incoming missiles, enemy aircraft, or ground targets with minimal risk of collateral damage. Additionally, their operational efficiency means they don't run out of ammunition or take time to reload like conventional warplanes, offering sustained firepower in prolonged engagements. This combination of precision, speed, and virtually limitless ammunition places Israel's fighter jet leagues ahead of its competitors.
An additional 25 aircrafts will be added to the Israeli Air Force F-35 fleet, bringing the total to 75 in the coming years.
When combined with the F-35 fighter jets and the Iron Dome, Israel will have placed itself at the very top among military powerhouses. It will be capable of eliminating enemy threats even before they exist. Enemy drones and missiles will no longer be a threat, as the lasers can destroy them with remarkable accuracy and speed. There will be no need for explosions and the huge balls of smoke that come with it. Unlike missiles that can only be used once, with the need for a reload before another one is fired, laser guns can be deployed faster and repeatedly without a reload. This means lasers are cheaper and offer more advantages over traditional missiles. However, the development of laser-powered fighter jets does not just give Israel an advantage. It encourages a competitive atmosphere among nations as others strive to create a similar technology. Just like the United States' fifth-generation YF-22 pushed the likes of China, Russia, Japan, Turkey, and India to create warplanes with similar capabilities, a laser-powered aircraft will do the same. The United States will do all it can to get its hands on the technology, especially with Israel being a close ally. China and Russia cannot stand by and watch the US gain that much advantage over them. So, they will likely begin developing similarly powered fighter planes. This can upset the balance as each nation goes all in on reproducing a fighter jet capable of standing its ground against the laser guns. But that's not the only challenge that could arise from this situation. It could also push nations to look for alternative warfare instruments to hurt their adversaries. For instance, Iran could fast-track the development of its nuclear program. Nations could revert to cyber warfare, where they try hacking devices or interfering with enemy communications. However, laser technology is not flawless. It needs a lot of energy, which current fighter planes may not be able to provide or sustain over a long period. It will also need a strong connection that allows seamless operation and sharing of real-time intel. But technologies like Elon Musk's Tesla and Starlink and further advancements in fighter jet engineering could solve the issues in no time. With a laser-powered fighter jet, Israel will have adequately secured their skies from multiple enemies threatening the country. However, it could also begin a tussle among nations as each one strives to stay in control of the most powerful fighter systems. But what if more technology can be added to the fighter plane that already has laser technology and security surveillance systems? Could artificial intelligence be added to achieve AI-driven laser power that can shoot down missiles, enemy planes, and drones by itself? It could be the ultimate weapon, helping the nation in control to win all wars against its opponents. How does Iran react to this development? What has been done, and what can they do to achieve a balance once again? Let's look at the ways Iran is responding to this new threat. Iran's response. For Iran, the situation presents a dilemma for them, one with no clear way out. Their response must be divided into two, and neither is going to be an easy task. First, they have to respond to the most recent attack, but their response cannot be one of haste. Iran cannot simply go charging back at the enemy because not only has the recent attack shown that would be a fool's errand, but they're also currently at a disadvantage. They've been opened up, and any charging at the enemy leaves them even more vulnerable than ever. For now, they seem to have taken the careful route. Trying not to appear weak or seriously affected by the attack, Iranian officials have played down the effects. While Israel claims to have attacked around 20 sites, Iran is acknowledging attacks at only 3 provinces with military bases: Tehran, Ilam, and Khuzestan. Iran also claims to have limited the attack thanks to their air defense systems.
Military effects of that strike is beyond what's being reported, because they have literally taken down most of the Russian air defense system, the so-called S-3.
This may seem irrelevant, but it is a crucial step in maintaining Iran's image of resilience, particularly for its allies and domestic audience. Acknowledging too much damage could weaken Iran's standing with its regional partners, such as Hezbollah and other groups that rely on Iran's strength as a regional powerhouse. To them, Iran must project an image of stability and control, even in the face of significant setbacks. By downplaying the scale of Israel's attack and emphasizing the effectiveness of their air defenses, Iranian officials aim to reassure both their allies and their own population that the nation remains firmly in command of the conflict. Diplomatically, Iran is also attempting to rally international condemnation of Israel's actions. Iranian officials have already sent letters to the United Nations, accusing Israel of violating its sovereignty and engaging in acts of aggression. While these efforts are unlikely to result in tangible action against Israel, they serve as another tool in Iran's strategy to frame itself as the victim and garner sympathy on the global stage. The Iranian representative to the UN, Amir Said Iravani, sent a letter to the Security Council claiming that Israel's actions were unlawful and aggressive, and a flagrant breach of international law and the UN Charter. The letter implored the Security Council to take a firm stance and condemn the Israeli regime for committing these acts of aggression strongly and unequivocally. However, the Israelis have blasted Iran's letter through their ambassador, Danny Danon. They maintained that was trying to act against us in the diplomatic arena with the ridiculous claim that Israel has violated international law. As we have stated time and time again, we have the right and duty to defend ourselves and will use all the means at our disposal to protect the citizens of Israel, he added. Another part of reacting to the recent attack is crafting a retaliation that is measured yet impactful enough to send a message to Israel without triggering an all-out war. Iran's leaders know that any poorly calculated response could result in further devastating strikes on their already vulnerable infrastructure. This leaves them with limited options. No replies at all would make them appear weak and unable to sustain continuous conflict, which can give Israel the initiative for further attacks until it cripples Iran. Meanwhile, a direct attack on Israeli soil would likely provoke an overwhelming Israeli counterstrike, one that could target Iran's nuclear program or cripple its energy production entirely. Instead, Iran may turn to its network of proxy forces in the region to carry out retaliatory attacks. These groups, including Hezbollah in Lebanon and various militias in Syria and Iraq, offer Iran the ability to strike at Israeli interests indirectly, avoiding direct escalation while still maintaining a veneer of plausible deniability. Such an approach allows Iran to respond without risking its core assets, though it comes with its challenges. Proxy attacks could invite retaliatory strikes from Israel against these groups, further destabilizing the region and drawing Iran into a prolonged and costly conflict. Iran is already in a difficult place. It's dealing with sanctions due to its nuclear program, drawing a parallel between Iran and nations like China and Russia. This has affected the situation within the country, causing economic problems that have skyrocketed the prices of goods within the country. As a result, domestic dissent has risen in the country, putting more strain on the government. Ultimately, Iran's response will be shaped by a delicate balancing act, demonstrating strength without overstepping into a conflict it cannot afford to lose. The coming days will reveal whether Iran can navigate this treacherous path or whether the cycle of retaliation will push both nations closer to the brink of an all-out war. The second part of Iran's dilemma is far more complex, developing a long-term response to the newfound power the Israelis are currently wielding. This challenge is much more than a retaliation. It's about recalibrating Iran's military and strategic positions to address the glaring vulnerabilities exposed by Israel's latest strike. The precision and effectiveness of the Israeli operation have sent a clear message that Iran's current defensive infrastructure is inadequate against the advanced capabilities of its adversary. This means rethinking its reliance on traditional air defense systems. The destruction of multiple power sources in Syria and Iraq for their detection systems has left the country exposed to future strikes, especially against its energy and nuclear assets. Replacing these systems will not be easy, as Iran faces logistical hurdles, international sanctions, and a growing technological gap with its adversaries. Tehran may seek to procure more advanced systems from allies like Russia or China, but this takes time and does not guarantee immunity against Israel's evolving tactics. Beyond hardware, Iran must also address the intelligence failures that allowed Israel to plan and execute such a devastating operation. The strikes revealed that Israel not only knows where Iran's critical assets are located, but also understands how to bypass or neutralize their defenses. This points to significant weaknesses in Iran's counterintelligence efforts, weaknesses that must be urgently addressed if Tehran hopes to protect its strategic interests. In parallel, Iran will likely double down on its asymmetric warfare capabilities. With its conventional defenses compromised, Tehran might lean more heavily on its network of proxy forces to counterbalance Israel's military superiority. These tactics allow Iran to strike back in ways that are less predictable and harder to defend against, shifting the battlefield into less conventional arenas. However, this strategy also risks escalating regional tensions and further isolating Iran diplomatically. Domestically, Iran faces the challenge of maintaining public morale and national unity in the wake of such a high-profile attack. The leadership must convince its citizens that the country remains strong and capable of responding effectively to threats, even as the economic strain of sanctions and internal unrest weigh heavily on the nation. To this end, Tehran's efforts to downplay the attack and emphasize its resilience are as much about controlling the narrative at home as they are about sending a message to the outside world. The road ahead for Iran is fraught with uncertainty. To counter Israel's advanced capabilities, Tehran must invest in smarter defense systems, rebuild its damaged assets, and develop innovative strategies to neutralize Israel's technological edge. These efforts will take time and resources that Iran may not have. They must find a way to adapt and remain in strong contention, or they may fall further behind, giving them no way back until completely crushed. The conflict has been fought by more than just Iran and Israel. Let's explore the contribution of other parties and what each one has done to get us to this point. Allies on both sides. The Israel-Iran conflict is hardly a bilateral affair. It has evolved into a proxy battlefield with other nations not only choosing sides, but also playing pivotal roles. Both nations have cultivated strong alliances to bolster their strategic positions and gain advantages, no matter how small. For Israel, their closest ally is the United States, which has consistently provided financial, military, and diplomatic support. The US views Israel as a critical partner in maintaining stability and countering adversaries in the Middle East. From advanced weaponry to intelligence sharing, the US has played a significant role in equipping Israel to handle threats like Iran. It is difficult to see how Israel gained the advantage it did without the support of the US, who may have supplied the resources and personnel to build the technologies in Israel's possession. Washington's unwavering support is also evident in its veto power at the United Nations, often shielding Israel from international criticism or sanctions. The presidents of the United States have openly supported Israel on multiple occasions. Beyond the US, Israel has forged alliances with regional powers like Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, UAE. Though historically divided by religious and cultural differences, these nations share a mutual concern about Iran's growing influence and nuclear ambitions. This has led to unprecedented cooperation, including intelligence sharing and security collaborations. On the other side, Iran has cultivated a network of alliances across the Middle East, with a focus on leveraging proxy groups to extend its influence. Hezbollah in Lebanon is perhaps its most prominent ally, receiving financial, military, and ideological support from Tehran. This relationship has allowed Iran to maintain a direct threat against Israel's northern borders. Iran's ties with Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad also serve as tools to challenge Israel from within the Palestinian territories. These groups rely on Iranian funding and weaponry, aligning their resistance against Israel with Tehran's broader regional goals. Beyond militant groups, Iran has aligned with state actors like Syria, a partnership that provides Iran with strategic depth and a foothold near Israel's borders. Additionally, Iran's growing ties with Russia and China have given it access to advanced weapons, economic partnerships, and political backing on the global stage. These alliances serve as a counterweight to US and Israeli influence in the region. The new fighter jet has transcended the limit of what the whole world thought possible, and Iran will be taking special notes considering their long-term conflict with Israel. The fight between the two nations has seriously tilted towards Israel, and unless Iran quickly finds its own answer, this fight may not go on for too long. What do you think about this new warplane? What do you think are the implications for other nations? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more.